Okay, welcome back to another video. As always, if you really like this video, click on that like button below. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any more. And you can always click on the super thanks and give me a donation if you feel so inclined and are able to do so. Also, don't forget to read the description because I will put links down there to my other lettering videos in case you haven't watched those, and I also have some other links down there that you may find useful. So let's get on with the video. Okay, let's look at a couple of examples of adding lettering to an existing design or a design you've digitized. This design was actually, or is actually, in the software in version 9 in the section on babies and children. So let's remove this lettering. Oh, actually, I'll select the design because it's grouped because I inserted it. So I can just select the whole design by clicking on it, and I'm going to copy that. And I'll get a new design and I will click here and paste. Alright, so now I've just got the design. So you've seen me insert a design before, so you can just come up here and insert your design with this little zigzaggy icon up here, or you can open an existing design, or you can go to the embroidery library and open it from there. There's all sorts of options, but all you need to do is get a design on here. Now, as you saw in the example, I've got some writing on an arc on the top and on an arc on the bottom. Now, to do that, there's a couple of options. So let's go back to our design only and let's come to our lettering and monogramming toolbox and right click on lettering so that our object properties opens. I'll just leave it on top here for the moment. So we could create our first line and use the arc that puts the writing on the top. Then we could create a separate lettering object with the writing on the bottom, and then we could align those up around the design. But there is a third way, which is probably even easier, and that is to use this predefined tool. So I did cover that in my lettering videos, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail today about that one. So if you haven't watched my lettering videos, go back and watch those and then come back to this one. So you need 3 lines of lettering normally for this predefined. So I'm going to put in, what did I have? John David Smith, I think. Doesn't really matter, but I'm just trying to think of something that's got a reasonable bit of length to it so that it looks okay. And now if I return, I would normally type in here what I want on the straight line in the middle, but I've already got an embroidery design in the middle, so I don't want anything there. So all I'm going to do now is hit my return key again so that I'm now on line 3. I've left the middle line blank. And so I can put here born, what's the date today? The 30th of January. It is here where I am. 30th. And we do our date and then our month. So if it looks weird, well, anyway, I'll write the month and then it won't look so weird. So you would probably put 1/30/2025, but we put 31/2025. So I'll just put 2025 there. And so as you can see, I've got one line at the top, a blank line for the middle, and I've got a line for the bottom. So I can use my predefined. So I can click on this and apply. And now I can left click in the middle of the design, and if I hold my control key down, I can keep that middle line horizontal, and I can left click out here, and I may as well, I could create an ellipse, but Oh yeah, let's do that. And when I've done that, it's created the two arcs of writing. Now I'm going to just go OK and leave that. It's used the first colour in the design, which is pink, which I don't really want, so I'm going to just change it to the darkest blue in the design. So the design colours have, because I inserted an existing design that has colours, those colours are at the beginning of my palette now, so I can just choose that darker blue so it shows up better for you, and also I think it looks nicer. Alright, so what happens with the predefined though, and you would have noticed that when I'll make it the other blue, because then it will be separate from the outline of the design. That's better. So if I have the writing selected and right click and go to object properties, you'll see there's nothing there, and this is what I said in the previous videos on lettering. You can't edit what's in the predefined shape anymore as far as changing what you've written, because in actual fact it's not one object. So if I just move this out of the way, and I'm in color blocks at the moment, but if I go into individual objects and scroll, whoops, I move my mouse too far, I should get this slider bar, scroll right down to the bottom, you'll see I've got two separate objects. And if I'd have had some writing in the middle, it would have been a separate object as well. So when you use the predefined, which is no longer available because I haven't got 3 lines of text up here, but when you use the predefined, it creates the 3 objects as actually separate objects. So this will make a lot more sense to you when you go to do anything to them. So you can move these individually. I can select just the bottom line of text. I have to click on it again, so I've got the solid handles, and I can use my down arrow to move that further down because I think it's a little bit too close. Okay, I don't mind the John David Smith there. Now I also want to flatten this arc out more. I don't mind the John David Smith on that shape, but this looks a bit too curvy for me. So I can go to the reshape tool. Now with the arcs, you have, whether it's a circle or an ellipse, in this case it was an ellipse, but we've only got half an ellipse. You can grab this middle, you have to look for it, a little yellow node in the middle of the center. So if I take that further up, I'm actually increasing the size of the circle that arc was created from, and so I'm flattening out that curve. So the further I go up, the flatter it'll be. So I can get a much better, flatter curve on that lettering. And then I can go back to my select tool, and I could actually now, I think, get that a little bit further up. So it's still selected, so I can use my up arrow, and I can, oh, maybe not, select it again, use my up arrow, yes. And so I could have it flatter like that. And if I zoom out, you'll see the look there. So that's a little bit more in depth about how the predefined objects work in the lettering, and I hope you find that useful. The same is if you do just create a circle with an arc. So let's just do it again. I'll get rid of all the lettering and delete, and go to my lettering, right click, and I'll just put John David Smith. And I can use the arc that puts it at the top, and apply, and click, and whoops, I'll just escape out of that for a minute. I'm going to go OK so that I don't have that in the way, and then I can click, and I can decide on my arc. I can hold my control key down and enter, and there's my John David Smith. Now if I go to the reshape tool there, here is my yellow centre where I can make the circle bigger. But then I would have to, I forgot the H in John, I would have to create the other line of lettering for the bottom and then line it up with the arrange. You can select different objects. So if I select the David Smith and then select the, I'll hold my control key down and select the design. Now I can align centers vertically. It shouldn't, oh, it did move slightly. So you would have to do that. Oh, because I decided where I want to start the circle, the middle of the circle. So you don't get it exactly right all the time. So it is probably a good idea to realign anyway. If I'd have had the bottom line on here, I could have selected everything while it's still a lettering object. If you break that lettering apart, or if your embroidery is not grouped and you use these aligned centers, all the objects will line up in the center. So the propeller would be in the center, the star at the back would be in the center. So make sure your design's grouped and your lettering is still a lettering object. If it's not, group the lettering as well. Okay. Now if you want to have your writing not at the top and the bottom of the arcs, and you can do this with the predefined as well, you need to select your writing and go to the reshape tool. And with the arcs, predefined, remember you had two yellow nodes there and a yellow node in the center. When you do just the arcs separately, you get a full circle or a full ellipse. But if you look for the opposite side, you'll find the yellow nodes here, and you can actually move those. So if you have them, it will automatically center between the two yellow nodes. So if you want to get them on a curve, let's go a little bit further that way. They'll center on here. I can, shorten it down, but I might want to just get them on an angle for a particular design. Okay, so now let's just change that to the blue. So now I've got my writing on an arc, but it's on an angle. So it depends on the shape of your design, what you're trying to go around. And that brings me to another option where sometimes your arches just aren't going to suit the design. Of course, you can do straight lines as well. It all depends on the design. But let's have a look at this design here. Okay, so here I digitized the writing along the path. So that was the option. Let me just select the lettering, and I did it as two separate objects, as you can see down here in the color film. So this one, I'll just right click object properties, and you can see I've got the any shape option, and I digitize my own path. Now I originally started doing I thought being a red work design, the run script would look good. I ended up with this script and this font, and I'll tell you why shortly. But as you can see, I've got the height at the very smallest of this font, 8 millimeters, and I think it does work. So that's the Hand of Sean font. I'm not sure if that came with the software or whether I've just got that. You might have to check that out, but I think it came, no, of course it's a digitized font, so it has to come with the software in version 9 at any rate. So it's quite a nice font actually. It sort of looks handwritten. Now this is an example of, if you've watched my lettering videos, I talked about the different joins. This is an example of a font that's digitized with the closest join. So it's not along the baseline, these joins, it's between the letters. However, I go to the reshape tool. I'll select it first and go to the reshape tool and go out of true view and show my connectors. Okay, you zoom in. Actually, we don't have to go to the reshape, we can just have it selected. Right, and show the connectors, show outlines. Yeah, let's take the show outlines off. You can see that these connectors do not have tie-ins or tie-offs between them. So this is a case where you would not trim these little jumps. So just check that with your fonts. If I go, let's view, I'll just close that. Let's get view measure. And I'm going to click from here where this jump starts actually, and it goes to there. And it's actually 2.29 millimeters. So normally our software would put in trims if a gap is any bigger than 2 millimeters. Let's go from here to there. Oh, it's under 2 millimeters if I go from the letter to the letter. So there may have been a needle point in there. Oh, let's just escape for a minute and put my needle points in as well. It's a bit hard to tell because it's right at the point of a zigzag. So that could be the zigzag needle point as well. So it might be that it's under 2 millimeters. Here we know that this one goes straight through to there. So let's measure this one. That's 1.93. It just makes it. 1.35, yes. So these are all under 2 millimeters, I would say. So that's why it hasn't put in a trim. And so you're not expected to trim those little tiny stitches. When you see it in actually stitched out, you will never see those little jumps unless you've got an extremely high contrast between your colour of your stitching and your fabric. And even then, let's go to 100% and true view. And yeah, you'd be hard pressed. You'd have to look really close. Maybe this one here between the J and the O, that's a bit long. But it certainly ties off between the words. So if I go out of true view again, we can see after each word it ties off and then ties in at the next one. That's what this triangle and the circle represents. So it's not a bad font to use for this. When I tried to do it with the run stitches, I came up to some issues with jumps that I couldn't trim that were way too long. But I think I'll leave that for another video because this one's got a little bit too long, so I might do a video just on running fonts. But hopefully I've inspired you to add some lettering to some of your designs, some words maybe, and some things to think about. And I may have helped with some issues, hopefully, that you may have come across yourself and not known how to control. Thank you very much.